Hey, I'm at Bangor School of Music in Dedham, and I have lots of students that, talk about guitars, gear, what guitars to buy, things like that. And one of the things that I always recommend is to check out, wow, we're getting a thunderstorm and we just kind of lost power for a second. Anyway, um, I always recommend looking into Squiers. So I think they're great value for the money and all of that. One of the things that you want to look for in any guitar is playability, and the biggest thing playability wise, I think, is the feel of the neck. So we're going to look at some Squier necks, and hopefully you'll watch through the video. Spoiler alert, they're all completely different and it doesn't really matter. You just have to try out different guitars. So let's take a look at some Squier necks, and I'll talk about some of the differences. I have a few from different years. I think I have 10. They're laid out here. I'll show them in a second. I think I have 10 different guitars and a couple of necks that aren't on guitars yet. They're awaiting a body transplant. And then I have a actual US Fender to sort of compare them to. So let's take a look and see how they all kind of work out. So here I have a bunch of my guitars laid out, and I have all the info written down on a piece of paper. But this first one here, I believe, is one of the newer vintage modified kind of ones. This here is just a Squier standard Strat. This is one that I put together with Brian May wiring and everything. There's a couple of videos explaining that on my channel, and it does have a Squier neck on it. So when I got the neck, it was on a different guitar, but the neck felt great, and everything was sanded off of it. But if you hold it up to the light, you can still kind of see the serial number. You can definitely see the Fender logo on the back of the neck and all of that. This is another Squier standard. This is an Affinity that I recently picked up. This is a really cool red Strat. Obviously, I modified it a whole lot, but I got it a few years ago. My dad picked it up at, I believe, a yard sale, and it plays and sounds great. So, I put different electronics into it and stuff, including a vintage Bill Lawrence L500 pickup. That sounds amazing in the bridge position. Here's my boss's Squier Strat from a while back, and it's signed by somebody very famous. It says "Rock On" and then has the signature underneath. It's like some scribbles, but it's pretty cool. So I don't know if anybody knows who signed that. I certainly do. And then we have a Fender made in USA guitar to compare the next two. And I threw in my Squier Tele just sort of as another comparison. And then I have, like I said, a couple of necks from Squier Standard and an Affinity here, just again to compare to. So a bunch of different guitars, bunch of different necks. We'll take a look at them all individually and see how they compare. Okay, so here we have two Squiers that I just grabbed because they're similar and all that. This one here is crafted in Indonesia, and the serial number ICS 16, which I believe shows that it's a 2016, and this is ICS 09, which I believe is a 2009. So they're a few years apart. And I wrote all the info down, so I'm reading it. This one here at the nut is 41 millimeters, and it was a little tough to measure because the edges are rolled, so they're sort of curved. It's not a sharp, defined edge. This one here is also measured at 41 millimeters. Okay, this one here at the 12th fret measured at 52 millimeters, and this one here at the 12th fret measured at 51. And I was very, I measured as best as I possibly could. So this is definitely slightly thinner at the 12th fret. What does that mean? I don't know. But anyway, so this one here has rolled edges, and the neck feels really nice. A little bit weird. Right past the 12th fret, the neck actually gets slightly thinner. So it feels fine here, and then there's sort of a little dip right here. And if you hold it kind of like up to the line, you can kind of see that there's a little dip. You can definitely feel it. So a little bit weird, but I would imagine that these are not, all CNC cut. They're probably, just kind of hand sanded down. Obviously, cut and everything, cut and shaped, but then sort of the finish sanding. But anyway, the neck feels great. It's somewhat substantial, and the finish on it is like a very thick gloss finish. It feels very 70s, and I don't mind that. With this one here, the neck is first, it has like great flame, maple on it. I don't know if that's showing up in the video, and obviously a rosewood neck. This here is a one-piece neck. This is not a maple cap on the fretboard. This is a one-piece maple neck, which is fairly nice. With the skunk stripe in the back for the truss rod. This has a rosewood fingerboard, and feeling it, this feels slightly thinner, although they measured to be exactly the same. It feels slightly thinner. This one feels slightly thicker this way, so that might account for comparatively this feeling thinner at the nut. The finish on this is a matte finish, and it feels great. It's a very quick finish. I like it. The edges of the headstock on this are fairly, sharp, defined, like right angle, and the edges on this are much more rounded. It feels a little kind of smoother. I don't know what really matters. This headstock seems slightly thinner, but I didn't really measure it. So here's a couple of comparisons right here. So let's take a look at a couple more. Okay, here's another one. I grabbed this one because it looks the same coloring and stuff, same layout as the guitar that Richie Blackmore played at the New York show in the early 70s, which I think is like the only footage of the original Mark II Deep Purple playing Smoke on the Water. So that's why it kind of stands out in my head. But, so I grabbed this, and for one, the body is much more angular. It's not as rounded, on the edges, but we're not talking about the bodies. We're talking about the necks. This neck, it feels chunkier. It feels very chunky here at the first couple of positions. The nut is poorly cut. It doesn't feel good at all. On the other ones that I just did, the two black ones, the one with the rosewood fretboard also has a nut that's absolutely just factory, cut and shaped, not even shaped, but molded, whatever, and the slots are already in it. They just threw it in the guitar because the action is super high on it, way too high. So this one here is Indonesia, and the serial number starts with IC 04, which leads me to believe, of course, that it's a 2004. The nut on this is 42 inches, and at the 12th fret it's 42 millimeters, and at the 12th fret it's 52 millimeters. But it definitely feels thicker this way, and it has sort of like a fuller curve to it. The other two were a little more sort of modern shaped. This is a little, I guess what they used to call kind of baseball bat-ish. The matte finish on this feels plasticky. It doesn't feel very good at all. The fretboard edges, and it's a one-piece maple neck, not a cap, not a maple fretboard cap. The edges are rolled, but they feel very rigid. They don't feel smooth. They don't feel worn in or anything. I don't know if somebody tried to roll them afterwards, but it doesn't seem like it, because it goes right to the frets and everything. Everything feels nice and smooth. No fret ends sticking out, but it feels very not welcoming. It's not an easy playing neck. I'm not thrilled with this one here. So let's take a look at a couple more. Okay, so these two here are the thinnest necks that I have, in my little assembly arrangement collection of Squier Strats. And this one here is an Affinity, Indonesia, ICS 09, so 2009. And this is crafted in Indonesia, IC 03, so 6 years apart. And both Affinities, both Squier Strats. Obviously this is the larger headstock, and if we look at it, this one here, I think the rosewood looks comparable. This one here, I think the rosewood's darker, and a little bit thinner slab on this one here, a little bit thicker on this one. So anyway, this one here, when I picked up, the neck feels absolutely tiny. So I was interested to measure it, and at the nut it came out to 39.5 millimeters. And again, I was trying to be super precise, but it could be 40. But it looked a little less than 40. This one here came out to 40. Yes, 40 definitely. And at the 12th fret, this one came out to 51, this one came out to 52. So, whatever. But this one here, the neck is a little more of sort of like a V-ish shape. So the shoulders of it, the edge on this one here, are a little more sort of angled in towards the center. This one here is a little more rounded, so the shoulders are, it remains this thickness a little more than this one does, if that makes sense. Okay, so this one you pick up and the neck feels tiny. This one you pick up, and to me, the neck feels a little nicer, a little, more like a, handful. Certainly not, a wide neck. But, so the difference between them, at best, is this is like 0.5 millimeter thinner. But it feels tiny compared to this. Much different than, I have some that are 40, some that are 41, much different between 40 and 41 and 42. Those feel fairly similar. This feels tiny. So I think it's more the shape of the neck. So let me see if there's anything else that I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap everything up. So this guitar here, the Telecaster, I wanted to mention also. The width on this neck is 40, just like the last two that I did. but the neck itself, oh, and it's crafted in China, 2007, so not Indonesia, China, and it is a maple cap, not a one piece, and the maple cap is pretty thick. It's a fairly thick chunk of maple. I like that. I think the two-piece maple, I like a maple board. I prefer the tone of it, and I think the two-piece makes for a little more rigid neck. But this is definitely, the neck is definitely more rounded. It's a little more, sort of baseball bat-ish, but a little slimmer. And this 40 millimeters definitely does not feel like 40. It's a good, good solid feeling neck. It's nice, and there's plenty of wood to grab and everything. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's take a look at some more. Okay, another quick thing that I wanted to point out. Here we have two necks, Squier Strat by Fender Affinity, Squier Strat by Fender Affinity. The logos are different. This is by Fender in just sort of a plain font, and this has the actual Fender logo. And this is crafted in Indonesia in 2003. This is China. The serial number is CY812, it starts with, and looking online, I think that means it's 98, but I'm not completely sure. I know that Squier started in 1982, and usually they have the number like IC, meaning crafted in Indonesia, and then a two-digit serial number. I'm sorry, a two-digit year. So this here, would say CY81, but of course, Fender started doing the Squiers in 82, so it can't be an 81. I think it's a 98. But one thing I wanted to point out is the distance to this first tuner is totally different, because when I was measuring, I would slide the ruler underneath the strings here behind the nut and measure the width of the nut. Okay, I felt that way I could get the sharpest and not worn out a little from playing or whatever. And on this, on this one, I couldn't slide the ruler in. So if I hold them up, okay, you can see that, hopefully, that first E tuner is off by like almost a ½ an inch. This is closer. So I'm guessing that would put a little more downward pressure on the nut. That could change things. I don't know. But, that's what it seems to be. So just wanted to point that out. Okay, so here we have my boss's actual made in USA Strat, and the serial number is N102, it starts with. So looking up in the, looking it up online, N means 90s, and then the 1 indicates 1991, and it is made in USA. The nut width is 41 millimeters, and at the 12th fret it's 51. So kind of there goes that whole myth about affinity, being thinner at the nut, or just Squiers being a little thinner at the nut, and American Fenders, having the correct spacing and all of that. You know what? It's right out the door, right out the window. Nothing. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, they're all different. They're all slightly different. Fender Squier, I'm not noticing any difference in measurements. Real world actually measuring them. So whatever. But this neck feels nice. It feels like a lot of the Squiers. It's a little bit slim, a little bit of a modern kind of a thing. But one thing that I definitely notice is the rosewood slab behind the nut. It's definitely longer on the treble side than the bass side. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, it plays fine, so it's not like the nut is cut at an angle. What I'm thinking is the fretboard was put on the neck. The neck was playing down at an angle. So the fretboard is actually thicker on the treble side. You know, and then I think it's, you know, no, actually it looks about the same. But I think maybe the angle down to the headstock here behind the nut is cut kind of crooked at a bias. But at any rate, you know, it's not like a Made in USA has so much more care put into it. I just don't see it. So what's the bottom line? Find a neck that you like the feel of, Squier, whatever, and go with it. I like Squiers. I think they're a great, you know, value, especially if you're getting a used one. You know, I mean, you can get, I mean, I've seen used ones for, you know, 50, 60, 80 bucks in great condition. The necks are all different. The style is all different. The large headstock, the small headstock, the, you know, Stratocaster bold logo curling, the straight one, you know, whatever. Lots of different styles, lots of different things. Sometimes the string trees are the same height. Sometimes they're staggered like this one, where this one's a little bit higher, this one's a little bit down lower. The tuners are all comparable. You know, they're good. You can always replace those, whatever. But we're talking about the feel, the playability. The nuts are lots of different materials, cut lots of different ways. Some of them really good, some of them not so good. My Tele, the nut on it is amazing. It's incredibly low. You know, who knows? You win some, you lose some. Some of them feel great. Some of them have seemingly thinner frets. Some of them have a little bit, you know, bigger frets, fret ends sticking out or not. So, you know, my recommendation is definitely, if you're a little handy with a screwdriver, you know, buy 2 or 3 Squiers, take the best parts off of all of them, and fit them together. You know, the neck that you want, the body that you want, the color, you know, the weight, all different things, and take it apart, put one together, take all the other parts. You know, if you bought 3, put the other 2 back together and sell those 2 for pretty much what you paid for them, and you end up with a great guitar for much cheaper than you could normally get one for. So hope this helps somebody. And, you know, basically I don't see any difference with the necks. Well, they're all different, you know, but I don't see Squier necks as being necessarily inferior to any other Fender product. And I've had a bunch of Fender Strats. These are just, you know, the ones that I have right now at my disposal. I have another couple actual Fenders at home, but they needed some work, so they're not here. So I think I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, hope this helped.